My pleasure to welcome you to the eTherapy webinar. And before I turn over to our host, John, who's going to take us through one of the many offerings of eTherapy, I want you to think about if you're in a district or an agency and you're reviewing this, please really think about eTherapy. It's not just what you see today, but the wide offerings they have. And it really should be, whether you have a long-term problem or a short-term problem, they really should be your go-to people to sit down and just have a conversation with. So give you different ideas and how they can approach it and how they can help you with your district. And I got to tell you, their platform is second to none. One of the best I've ever seen. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to John. And please feel free in the chat section down here on the toolbar, ask any questions, and John will get to those when he can at the end of each slide. So John.
It is so awesome to be here with you today. Thank you so much for your time. I know your time is precious and it's important to me. And so I'm really excited about coming and talking to you a little bit today about mental health and specifically how we can equip schools from the start. And one of the things I really want to focus on right from this opening slide is that we're talking here about school communities. We're not talking about just students. We're talking about school communities. Much focus has been placed on students and support for students, and understandably so. It's been a difficult several years with COVID, and the in-class and the out-of-class supports have just, if anything has been consistent, it's been inconsistency. But that said, we have to understand that healthy students require healthy staff. So we aren't just talking about the student dynamic. We're talking about a much more complex dynamic that here at eTherapy we understand has to be met. It has to be addressed. A holistic approach that strengthens entire school communities is what is needed, and that's what we're here to talk about today. My name is John Ebert. As Chris mentioned, I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I'm not going to read this bio to you. What I will say is that I've worked in schools for a long time, and I love the energy, and I love the dynamic, and I love the relationships that classrooms afford both teachers as well as students. For the past 12 years, I've worked in a variety of settings, both public and private, in general ed and special ed, and have really learned that there are some needs or there are some gaps in the services and the supports that are not just offered to students, but are also offered to staff. And so today I'm really pleased to be able to talk to you about this. So as we look at what's at stake, this data absolutely blew me away. I knew that there were some problems that we were facing, but I had no idea it was to this degree. The fact that 1/3 of our teachers are leaving the profession within the first 5 years, or that vacancies are at all-time highs. We know that leads to underqualified teachers or burned out teachers that are leading classrooms in schools all across the country. But that wasn't the only thing that really impressed me. The other thing that impressed me is that for people that are in the field of education, this is not surprising data. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. You're dealing with constant turnover. You're finding that you're having to fill vacancies, not just year over year, but oftentimes throughout the school year, which is going to lead not just to inexperienced staff, but there are financial costs as well for those that run schools and run districts. And, as an administrator and a supervisor at a school, I know that a bad hire not just has financial impacts, but there are other impacts that it has on the classroom as well, to include increased stress for those teachers that are providing support, as well as decreased job performance. And we know that all of these things impact our students. On this particular slide, I really want us to focus on what it is that's driving this mass exodus from our classrooms. Now, this data removes salary as a factor. So I want to be kind of upfront there. We all know that teachers' salaries, they are what they are. That's a completely different webinar, right? But when you remove salary as a factor, nearly 3 out of 4 teachers that are leaving the profession cite student behavior as the main contributing factor that's causing them to leave. This What's more troubling about this is that student behavior is an area where there's not a lot of training and there's not a lot of education that's being provided to teachers. On the special education side, I know I've worked with a number of teachers that say there are 1 or 2 classes over the course of their 4-year degree that kind of focused in on student behavior. But for a lot of your gen ed teachers who are also experiencing these same impacts and who are also leaving the profession, they are citing student behavior as being the main reason. So if we know that this is having an impact financially, if we know it's having an impact with our ability to retain staff, what steps are we taking to address it? We know that the impacts are great. So what is it that classrooms and school districts are able to do in order to address mental health? And how does behavior play into mental health? This is a very basic definition of what mental health is. And the fact of the matter is, it's a part of all of us, right? We all experience normal stresses of day to day life. If I were to ask for a show of hands, I don't think anyone can say there isn't something in their life right now that's maybe grabbing their attention or causing them a degree of stress. So it's something that we all experience. But how we respond to these stresses is really the difference between mental health and somebody that might be experiencing mental health distress. So we know that these things are occurring in schools and classrooms all across the country, and we have to do something in an effort to address it. So what I want you to do is this. I want you to picture that you're a teacher. You're sitting at your desk and you look up to see a classroom of 30 smiling faces. Recognized as a teacher, you are going to be supporting roughly 6 students that are going to be moderately impacted by some type of a mental health issue over the next year. Now, let's say that maybe you're a principal, you're an administrator, and there are 60 teachers and staff that are under your care in your particular school. Because staff aren't immune to mental health issues, we know that nearly 12 of those staff are likely going to be experiencing some impacts of a mental health condition over the next year. And then for superintendents that maybe have school districts of 5, 6, 7 different schools in the district, 12 staff per school, that's 80 to 90 staff that are supervising roughly 3,000 students across 6 schools that are going to need some type of support with their mental health. With this in mind, there are multiple initiatives that need to be in place for us to be able to comprehensively address this problem. It's a multi-pronged problem, and it's going to require a multi-pronged solution. So today, we are going to look at how eTherapy is going to support you in addressing these needs. Because a holistic approach is required, we are looking at 3 specific areas where we can approach and support the mental health and well-being of your school communities. It's almost like a 3-legged stool. To begin, we have developed an Equip platform, and this is a platform that we use to directly provide support to teachers who are kind of in the trenches, so to speak, in classrooms across the country. We understand there are specific needs that they have, and we feel that it is our responsibility to help educate and empower them to be their best selves in the classroom. Once we're able to provide teachers with some of the tools and resources that they're going to need to be their best selves in the classroom, we also understand that there are some direct care services that are needed, and that's where e-care comes into play. These are services and direct counseling supports that are provided to students that allow us to refer students in need of service, to assess the degree of need that they possess, and then look at what interventions are possible and even what ongoing supports and counseling is going to be needed. for them to be their healthiest selves. And then finally, we have our eWellness initiative, which is directed specifically at staff because we know that staff are lacking in supports, and we know that staff have their own personal and professional needs. We have to make sure that we don't forget them in addressing both students and the rest of the school community. So we're going to take a look at each of these three areas to see how they may benefit you and your specific school. So what is EQUIP and how is it going to support your staff? EQUIP allows teachers to receive the immediate supports that we know they are needing in the classroom. It is self-paced, and it's online, so it's easy to access, but it's also something that's been developed by educators or by those that have worked in classrooms across the country that's going to allow teachers to recognize, respond, and recover from the impacts that we know are occurring in classrooms. Mental health is impacting students and teachers. And so the modules that we have created focus on what educators focus on in their work with students. So we're going to take a look at what some of these modules are. And isn't it convenient that we've used the acronym EQUIP in order to kind of vertical these different types of trainings out? So as you'll see, E stands for engaging environments. And we all know how important our environment is and the impact that our environment can have on us and the work that we do. I mean, just think about the way that you feel if you're in a work environment and some minor irritation occurs, as opposed to if you're at the beach with your toes in the sand, right? It's almost like the environment can take the sting out of some things. I worked at a school where our clientele were violent and aggressive kids. And one of the first things that we did when we went to transform the school is we transformed the environment. And kids started walking in and commenting that it looked like a school. And that was a very powerful statement, because when you have an environment that looks and feels like a school, it's going to be an environment that looks and feels like it's a place where learning can occur. So with engaging environments, we are helping teachers create those environments, not just the culture that is present in the school, but also a broader topics like sense of community and even the safety within the school environment. If people don't feel safe, then people aren't going to be able to learn. Then Q stands for quality connections. And this is kind of the building block of that teacher-student relationship. Connections are so important for us to realize successes in the classroom. There is a famous TED Talk by a lady by the name of Rita Pierson. I think she was a lifelong educator. If you haven't heard it, look it up. Her name's Rita Pierson. And I think the title of the talk is Every Kid Needs a Champion. But one of the famous lines that she has in her talk is that kids don't learn from people they don't like. And it's extremely true. We have to recognize the importance of developing these connections, these quality connections with students that can then be the building block for growth in classrooms to occur. Next is U, and that stands for understanding. And I have to be honest, when I was initially looking at the content for this model, my thought was teachers don't understand mental health. They don't know what it is. There's so much stigma that's around it, not just in classrooms, but in society. And we have to give teachers an understanding of what kids in distress look like, ways that we can be proactive and provide those supports to kids that are showing the early signs of struggling. And so initially, that was what comprised this module. But understanding, it's so much more. If we're going to make connections with kids, we have to understand who they are, not just as students, but we have to understand who they are as people. We have to understand the currency that they use, ways that we can really partner with them in their education, ways that we can motivate them, ways that we can love on them, ways that we can support them in ways that are going to allow them to be successful. Students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And understanding allows us to build that care and that understanding. Next is I, stands for interpersonal interactions. And this goes directly back to the fact that student behavior is what's causing the mass exodus of teachers in classrooms today. Teachers haven't been equipped or educated in ways to manage different types of behaviors in the classroom. And so this module focuses specifically on that. We give teachers tools and resources that allow for therapeutic and empathic responses. We allow them to develop a different frame of mind, a different perspective, maybe to see kids just a little bit differently, and thereby impact the ways that they're supporting, the ways that they're responding, the ways that they're communicating with kids. And it allows them ultimately to develop a stronger partnership with students. And then finally, last but not least, P stands for personal care and development. Unhealthy students won't always create unhealthy teachers, but unhealthy teachers will almost always create unhealthy students. We know this to be true. Teachers are constantly pouring out of themselves into kids' lives each and every day, but there comes a point where you just can't pour out of an empty cup. So we have to make sure that teachers' needs are being addressed and that we as educators are not only supporting our peers, but that we're supporting ourselves as well. Recognize, respond, and recover. These are the three key words that I think help identify our platform. Now, the structure of our platform, not only was the platform created for educators, but we've even structured it around the specific needs in order to benefit the teachers that we're trying to serve. The modules that we have are not only self-paced, but they're on demand, and they're comprised of 3 to 7 minute short videos. We develop this in bite-sized chunks because we know that teachers don't have 15, 20, 30 minutes that they can allocate 2 or 3 times over the course of a school day for the transfer of knowledge and getting some of these tools and resources in their hands. And if we can prevent them from having to take work home, I've never met a teacher that says, "Hey, I'd like to take more stuff home, please." Right? So we're wanting to create these things that can be utilized over the course of a school day. And so the timing and the length of these sessions, we've done just that. They can be viewed online in short increments, and then we have tools and resources that can immediately be transferred to their work in the classroom with students. And that's a really important piece. This can be activities, they can be forms, they can just be downloadable activities, but tools and resources accompany each of our module videos so you can apply what you're learning to what it is that your students are learning. And then finally, I have a license that I have to renew every year. I know teachers do as well. And the great thing about this is that there's also an opportunity for you to submit the certificates that you can receive by going through some of these different modules, and you can submit those to your licensing board for CEU as toward your annual or biannual license renewal. So we've really tried to think of everything in creating this program. Here's a short little video clip that goes into a little bit more detail about Equip, and it lets you see a little bit about what the platform looks like.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by the current mental health crisis and don't know where to start? Are your teachers exhausted from increasing demands and extensive trainings? And are you looking for a better solution to create a mental health structure for your school? eTherapy has the answer with Equip, our dynamic mental health training program that supports the emotional well-being of your entire school community. Get your free access to our Equip platform today and empower your educators with quick and immediate learning opportunities. Our Equip program offers short and engaging videos that educators can watch on demand at their convenience. And your school staff will have access to our library of grab and go interactive mental health classroom resources. When schools asked for mental health structure that fits their needs, eTherapy listened and created a better solution to equip and empower educators with the tools they need now more than ever. Take the burden off of yourself and your staff and get equipped today.
We all know that this is needed. We all know this is needed. Legislators know this is needed. And the reason I know that is because legislators are allocating funds in order for this to be accessible in schools across the country. Teachers are in need of these specific skill sets in order to support students in the classroom. That looks like the ability to recognize signs of distress in students, to respond in therapeutic and supportive ways, the ability to refer students so they don't feel like this is just falling on them. Teachers have enough on their plate already. They have to be able to refer students to get the help that they need. And then finally, recovery. And recovery is important because we know the degree of burnout that teachers are experiencing. And so by allowing them resources to recover, we allow them to reset and then provide support for the students that are still in their classrooms, the students that are still in front of them. So once your school community is equipped, what's next? Your teachers have been equipped with tools in the classroom. Now we have to look at what are some immediate direct intervention services that can be provided for students. I know the need exists. And the reason I know the need exists is because I recently saw that I think the national average ratio of students to school counselors is 415 to 1. Okay. And I guarantee you that 90% of the resources that are allocated for student support from a mental health standpoint are being utilized by 10% of your student population. We have to have a better ratio than that. Your school counselors can't continue to manage the need. And so that is where eTherapy comes in with our direct services to students. Because we care, we have developed what we call eCare, and that's our comprehensive assessment bundle. This video talks a little bit about what this service looks like for the students in your school.
Do you have students in your school who need mental health support? Once you notice that a student has mental health needs, it can be hard to determine what to do next. eTherapy makes it easy to answer this question with our comprehensive assessment and screening bundle. With our CAB bundle, our licensed mental health professionals utilize school-based data, mental health screeners, and a psychosocial assessment to identify a student's needs. The therapist will then meet with the student for telehealth sessions through our HIPAA-compliant platform. Our therapists utilize brief solution-focused therapy techniques to help students identify achievable goals related to their concerns and steps they can take to reach those goals. They will work with the student to identify strengths that are already in place to help the student find solutions that work for them. At the conclusion of the direct intervention services, our therapists measure progress and write up a care plan to ensure continued supports for the student as needed. Navigating the process of mental health assessment and intervention can be an overwhelming task for schools to handle. eTherapy offers a streamlined solution with our comprehensive assessment and screening bundle. So please reach out and let us know how we can develop a plan that fits your school's specific needs.
From assessment to care plan, we have it covered. Everything from beginning to end and everything that's in between. We know that students are in need of support, but if you'll notice the title of this slide, it's eCare for all students. This isn't just SPED students. We're seeing a shift. And ironically, a lot of the students that are falling through the cracks nowadays when it comes to mental health are special education students. There are general education students. An example of this could look like the straight A student who seems to have everything together, is involved in various clubs, but she is crippled by anxiety and intrusive thoughts. Or Of course, we have the school athlete who has, scholarships lined up for going to the next level, but he's dealing with some uncommunicated substance abuse issue, or at home, he's dealing with an abusive or a neglectful parent. Or even the kid next door that's quiet in class, seems to have a smile on his face. No one really pays him a second thought. But inside, this kid is dealing with feelings of rejection or isolation, or maybe even is secretly being bullied. We're seeing that in so many instances across the country. E-care exists because these students are hurting too. It's not just our SPED kids that need support. Our general ed kids are needing it as well. And so we have e-care for all students. So once staff are able to help students, this is where we start to put their oxygen mask back on again, because there is no teaching without teachers. So we can't neglect teachers, and we have to turn our focus back on what their specific needs are. What are the benefits of supporting your staff in mental health? Well, number one, employee retention. We've already talked about that. We keep our staff by providing supports that they need to do their jobs. In addition, we will see improved classroom mental health. Remember, healthy teachers are going to produce healthy students. And then finally, these are wellness strategies that don't just apply to them professionally. We're also talking about strategies that can be implemented personally. I like to say that we want teachers to be their best selves, not only in the classroom, but also in their living rooms. They have families too, and we have to make sure that we're addressing all areas of their need. Now, we do this in a few ways. We have group sessions that are going to put information in front of staff that, in a 6-session series that you'll see on this slide, covers all of the different aspects of wellness. It's not just mental wellness, it's physical wellness, it's spiritual wellness, it's financial wellness, it's occupational wellness. There's so many different types or areas that make us well. And so this ongoing series is available for up to 15 participants per group, and it covers all areas of wellness with a focus on building community and connections. We know how important those are. And in addition, we have another type of a group wellness series that are almost like drop-in sessions. They are specific types of training that teachers can relate to, and skills that teachers are needing in order to do their jobs. Topics like navigating difficult conversations, right? How many teachers would raise their hand to say, I would love to be a part of a group that discusses how I can navigate difficult conversations, whether it be with a parent, whether it be with a coworker, whether it be with a principal, right? We all could use a little support in how to best navigate difficult conversations. Burnout is another one that's teacher specific. What does it look like? How do we respond to it? And even setting boundaries in the workplace. These are just a few of the topics that are covered in our wellness drop-in series. And there are even schools that might have specific needs, and we've developed specific trainings for specific school needs based on the region or even the dynamics that are going on in your particular school. Group sessions in and of themselves are also important because group work and the dynamics that are associated with that, it's impactful. You have employees that oftentimes feel like their classrooms are islands, and that what they're experiencing, no one else understands. And one of the beautiful things about putting supports in a group format is that teachers can see and hear that there are other teachers that are right there with them, that understand what it is that's going on. There can be supports and connections that are provided across your school or across your district that at the end of the day give hope and a feeling that change is possible. And without hope or a feeling that change is possible, we are in fact hopeless, and things aren't likely to get better. So we have supports that are aimed at giving staff a new, rejuvenized sense of hope and change. Solution-focused brief therapy is the final thing I want to touch on when it comes to supports for staff. And quite frankly, there are staff that might just need individual supports. There might be some issues or some things that a group format just isn't the most comfortable medium in order to discuss that with. And so not just individual supports for kids, but we know that staff need individual supports as well. And so eTherapy has you covered there. Solution-focused brief therapy is strength-based, it is evidence-based, and it has been seen to be extremely effective in both adults and youth in a school setting. It incorporates positive psychology principles, and of course, it is an extremely effective modality for a wide range of concerns and struggles. So basically, it's about comprehensive school mental health, recognizing, referring, and responding. We want to make sure that we are taking a holistic approach to solving this problem, from proactive classroom to support to direct support and intervention for the students that are in need, and even to recovery for staff and all the work that they're doing. We understand that these needs are complex and that they're unique for your individual schools and your individual districts. We want to develop something that has a positive impact on your whole school community, because every journey is different. Now, I don't know if y'all have that person that you work with that really likes to be funny, okay? But here at eTherapy, we have to mix in a little humor with some of the more important work that we do. And so as I was looking at wrapping this thing up, I've really attempted to take you on a journey, right? From the beginning stages of staff in the classroom to the ending stages of, staff just really being able to empower themselves and take care of their own wellness. And then those student supports are in the middle. And so I wanted a picture depiction that just something that screamed journey. And we have an awesome graphics guy. I love him to death. And when I mentioned this to him, he said, I got you. 20 seconds later, this is what I find. So for those of y'all that grew up in the 80s, this is the band Journey. I don't know that we could have gotten more literal than this. And so we gave it a good laugh, but then he said, oh no, you know what, John, I forgot. And so he added this: Don't Stop Believing. Of course, that was a hit song that they had. And initially we were going to rework this. And I got to thinking, and I was like, you know what? I think it's perfect. I think this represents journey, literally and metaphorically, because the fact of the matter is we don't want, for teachers, for principals, administrators, superintendents, we don't want them to stop believing that change is possible. We don't want them to stop believing that staff can't be equipped to do good work in the classrooms, or that schools can't be empowered for student success. And we don't want people to stop believing that supports are available for students. In spite of the obstacles, eTherapy is here to help. We want to partner with you to meet each and every one of your school's needs. So I know that we're close to time. I have about a 3-minute video here, if I'm given permission, where I can give you an example of what our specific modules look like. This is one of 3 or 4 that are taken just from our Engaging Environments module, but I want you to have a little taste of what this looks like. And then once this video is finished, we can talk about how you can get a much broader access to our Equip platform. Developing a school community of care, or a healthy school culture, is a vital piece of a supportive and safe school environment. Students who are struggling with feelings of isolation and disconnectedness are more prone to experience mental illness or engage in behaviors that are harmful to themselves and others. Therefore, it's important to establish a centralized vision, goals, and attitudes to aid in the development of a healthy morale and environment of inclusion. Getting students involved in developing rules and expectations is a great way to create this buy-in, while helping them feel empowered with creating a tone of community both in the classroom and throughout the school. This allows for a shared vision to be developed and also creates accountability with both students and staff. Activities that allow for creativity and connectivity of both students and staff, such as the mutual development of a school motto, is a great way to build something that everyone feels they're a part of, while creating a central theme or idea that's meaningful and representative of your school. The important thing is for everyone to be working to move in the same direction, thereby allowing for the responsibility to be shared. The best outcomes occur when everyone plays a role in the establishment of a strong and healthy school culture. It bears repeating that anyone who has consistent contact with students plays a role in establishing school culture and has the potential to influence another person for the better. A great example of this concept involved a school resource officer that had been assigned to one of the high schools I was working in at the time. While these individuals are usually the ones who routinely respond to disruptive behaviors, this particular gentleman recognized that there were unique opportunities for him to establish rapport and proactively support the development of a positive school environment rather than reactively responding to a negative one. He did this by writing inspirational quotes on a chalkboard inside the main commons area of the high school where he worked. He did this every morning as the students were arriving for school. I observed him go through this routine each and every day to the point where students not only began to look for it, but also began bringing in quotes that they had seen or heard outside of school. This small but consistent act had a profound impact on everyone involved and created another unique element in the supportive environment that was being established.
John, thank you very much. That was outstanding. And as I said at the beginning of this, if you're not familiar with not only eQuip but all of eTherapy's offerings, please take a minute. They're a long-term AESA business partner, but their offerings are outstanding, and their platform, as I said at the beginning of this, is second to none. So please take a few minutes and really get acquainted with what they have to offer to you, your agency, and the districts that you serve as well.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thanks, everybody.
Diana, thank you, and John, and thank the entire eTherapy team. You guys are just absolutely fantastic. Thank you guys so much.